Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur with your host, Steve Kidd, third-generation minister and 30-year business coach. Listen in as amazing, world-changing authors, speakers, and coaches share their struggles and victories. And hear from best-selling authors' insight into how you too can live your life as a thriving entrepreneur.
This is Steve. Welcome to Thriving Entrepreneur. Thanks for being with me here today as we talk about clear communications. Communications, whether it be inside of your company, in your relationships, with your clients, everything we do requires clear communication. But there are some of the things that we think about, or maybe I should say that we don't think about when it comes to clearly communicating. Like, for example, do your numbers clearly communicate what you as a company are doing and what you're all about? Do they communicate it to you, the owner? Do they communicate it to the people inside of your business? Can your accountant even make heads or tails of what you're trying to say or what is being said, if you will, by your company? So that's another example of it. We think about press releases and ads and all those kind of things, and we ask ourselves, does that really clearly communicate what I want to do? I do want to thank you for being here with us today as we talk about clear communications. I really appreciate you and all the time that we get to spend together as we learn to be thriving entrepreneurs in everything that we do in our life and business. Whether you are running the business of your day-to-day life or you're running a Fortune 100 company, we all want to live as thriving entrepreneurs. And clear communications is a huge piece of that. We need from the beginning all the way through the relationship and even beyond the quote-unquote end of the relationship in our company with the employees, with the clients, with the potential clients. We want those communications to be clear. And I've taken a little different approach to this because I've got three really amazing speakers that I'm talking with today that are going to really help you think of some clear things to communicate in ways that you probably haven't even thought that you should be clear in your communications. You ready for that challenge? I'm so looking forward to providing and presenting these people to you as we dive in deeper and learn together how to live as a thriving entrepreneur. And with that said, let's jump right into our first guest. Join me in welcoming Kyle Rogers. Hey, Kyle, how you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for having me here. I am stoked to give some value and give you guys something that you can implement. I want your audience to be able to walk away with something today that's going to fix lead generation for them forever.
I love it. So start us off by telling us just a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Yeah, so I help online entrepreneurs, expert speakers, course creators. I help them scale to 7 figures using 100% commission-only sales teams without spending a dime on ads.
I love that. So you can't give us the whole secret sauce because I listened to your webinar and it's about 2 hours long, but give us a clue. What is one thing that most people don't know that you really wish they would when it comes to really generating leads and, more importantly, sales?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to tackle one at a time. But first, let's tackle leads and then let's tackle sales. So rarely do you have a traffic problem. It's like you don't have an issue with traffic. With social media out there, you have unlimited eyeballs you can get in front of, even without paid ads. Most of the time, you have a positioning or a messaging problem rather than a traffic problem. If your messaging and your positioning is correct and you create resonance, then you'll solve that issue forever. Now, here's the other thing is if you think about growing an audience or generating leads, you can either spend money on paid advertising, which can be very expensive, or you can pay time for organic. But time is more expensive than money. So a lot of people get stuck on this. They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay for ads, or I'm going to lose money on ads for a bit till I learn them, because I don't have the time to do organic and hope that one post goes viral. The cool thing about this is you don't have to take any of your time. You don't have to invest your time. You can leverage other people's work and other people's audiences. So let me tell you what I mean by that. When you tap into other people's audiences, you go find out or go find another influencer. They have reach. They get a lot of engagement on their Facebook profile or on Instagram, and you get them to promote you. They either do a shout out post and tag you in it. You get a bunch of comments, and then you get to slide into the DMs and get bookings from there. Or you do an interview together, and there's a couple different posts that go out, and you have multiple posts to work, multiple posts that will get engagement. And if you think about it, if an influencer promotes you, then they are getting you in front of people that know, like, and trust them, especially if it's their personal profile. So if they have you on, their audience is seeing you with that person. And some of them have been following them for years. So this is authentic, real credibility that's been built up over time. And you get that transferred authority and transferred credibility. This is better than paid ads, because with paid ads, it's cold traffic. And a lot of time it's kind of forced attention, versus organic, it's authentic attention and built-in credibility that you can tap into. So the way I see it is I can either dig my own ditch and try to create a river, or I can look around and see that there's endless raging rivers out there, and all I got to do is plug in to those raging rivers.
I love that. So then let's talk about the sales aspect of that. How do you then take all those leads and turn them into, money in your pocket?
Yeah, great question. So it's the law of reciprocity, right? You have to give first. And if you give first and you build value and you build relationships, you're relationship driven, then you build up goodwill. Now, Alex Hormozi talks about this in $100 million leads, and he talks about building up goodwill debt. If you build up enough goodwill, people feel like they owe you, and that's where you put yourself in a position to get referrals or get super affiliates who will promote you and push you a ton of traffic. But the more goodwill you build, especially with targeted people, if you're strategic about it and you're reaching out to the top 1%, then that's the more traffic you can get for free that's already warmed up. So that's number one. Number two is when you are getting on the phone with somebody, don't think of it as a sales call. Think of it as a coaching call, because really you want to give them enough coaching to where they can go do it themselves. I call my salespeople coaches, because they go in and if they're having a strategy call with somebody, they're giving it all. They're giving everything. So essentially they're saying, hey, here's a silver platter with everything you could possibly need to go get this done yourself. Here's the do-it-yourself model. It's free. Go enjoy. But if you want to learn how to do it faster and you want us to hold you by the hand and build it right alongside you, this is what it looks like to work with us. So that's the positioning we take. Works incredible.
So, a lot of times when I talk to folks like yourself and then you refer to somebody that's a really big name, I always wonder, when you talk about the do-it-yourself version of that, are there people like those influencers that are teaching those kind of things that are actually still doing their social media themselves, or do they actually have teams that are actually really doing most of it and taking maybe a talk they did once that day or once that week and slicing it up and doing all the rest of those posts? Like Gary Vee talks about posting 60 times a day. I mean, does he really actually post 60 times himself a day?
Yeah, definitely not. So there's software to help with that. And on a lot of the times, if you're engaging with somebody in the comments or in Messenger, it's either going to be a virtual assistant or an appointment setter, especially as you go higher up. As the person gets more influence, they have a larger company, then you're going to run into a situation to where there's going to be a gatekeeper. Gatekeeper is going to be either a VA or a salesperson, a setter. Just like on my profile, I have a setter that runs my profile. But I'll still come in for people that are warmed up or they have a certain influence. Then I'll come in once in a while and I'll still take the conversation over. But I have a setter, a commission only setter that runs most of my conversations. So that being said, if somebody wants to get my attention, they have to give something so enticing that my setter says, Kyle, you must look at this. You have to look at this. And that happens. I have a specific chat thread in our team chat designed for that. I'm like, any red flags or green flags, anything that's like opportunity or looks amazing. This is your place to notify me. You say, hey, Kyle, this messenger conversation requires your attention. And all the time he'll put people in there that maybe they have a collaboration angle that they want to do, or they have a program that can help us and benefit us. So he looks for things like that, and then he gets my attention. Other influencers have the same thing set up because they don't want to miss these conversations that are happening, especially if they're high leveraged and somebody goes beyond the pay grade of the setter or the VA. They're still going to want to come in and have control of their account, of their messenger conversations. But they reserve that for like higher level stuff or deeper in the funnel.
So what is the one thing that if you could just wave a magic wand that people come to you and they want you to do that you wish they knew it doesn't really work that way and you could change in their mindset before you ever worked with them?
So are you saying somebody they're doing something that's just not working and I want them to change it?
Yes.
Okay. So cold DMs, please stop doing cold DMs and spamming people. It doesn't. So for one, it doesn't work and you're completely wasting your time and you're really not going to get any sales that way. And if you do get a sale, it's going to be low ticket or probably not a quality client. And number two, you're wasting other people's time because they're having so many conversations coming in and so much spam that you're not going to build up that goodwill. You're not going to get that reciprocation you're looking for. And in this business, it's all about who you know and who you're connected with. You know, your net worth is equal to your network. And if you're pissing off your network because you're just spamming everybody, then your net worth is not going to go up. So you got to make friends. You got to be cool. Don't spam. Just network. Just get to know people and authentically care about people. This is a cool industry. There's a lot of cool things being done. There's coaches that are doing revolutionary things. They have life-changing impact. There's a reason we got into work for ourselves in this specific industry is because it's fun and impact-driven. So remember that and be interested in people, because if you want to be interesting, you got to be interested.
Oh, I love that. So tell us, for somebody that wants to know more or work with you, how can they work with you?
So I have one last nugget I want to drop before I give you guys the gift. So I have a gift for you, but I have one last nugget to drop. Well, maybe two. So number one, if you want to know where to find people that will cross promote and work with you, either do a shout out for you for free, they don't charge for it, or you do an interview swap, or you do a masterclass together, or you do a webinar together, or a challenge or a summit, any of these types of things. If you want to find people that will do this with you, you got to go to the strictest, highest level groups and communities. School communities are also a really good place to go, especially paid communities. If you can get in on a paid community, your quality is going to be so much better. And some of them, they don't even cost that much money. And you go in there and network and talk about cross promotion, you're going to get a lot of traffic. You'll never have lead generation problems ever again. If you reach out to people in the cold DMs and you are focused on giving value first and collaborating first, then you'll have good luck. Then you don't have to cold DM anymore because you're going to have warm leads and referrals coming your way. So that's the first thing is find the strict groups, find the good groups that are influencer led. Next is if you want to get people to agree to cross promote, even if they're way higher level than you, the way you get them to say yes is to offer to promote them first. Offer to promote them first. Say, hey, I love your message. I want to promote you in front of my audience. And then you're going to have a much better chance of getting a yes when it comes to them promoting you. So that's a huge thing. It's make a big difference for you guys. I even have a script for you. So that's the gift. If you guys want the script, it's called the Zero Resistance Messenger script, and it's a collaboration script. It's all about cross promotion and relationship building. Comment below, guys, and I will make sure to reach out to you and get it to you.
I love that. Well, Kyle, thanks so much for letting me interview you and for sharing your time with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you guys. See ya.
Leads, the very heart, soul, and core of our company. It's the beginning of our sales funnel. I love how my good friend Errol Abramson always said, nothing happens until a sale begins. And in order for a sale to begin, we need to have the right kind of systems in place to find the right kind of people to be then the right clients and customers for us. But if we don't clearly communicate who we are, what we do, how we're doing it, those kind of things, we don't have a clear offer to them. Every place that we lack clarity in our communications, we're going to lack money in our bank account. And I know all of you, just like me, we like to have, when we go to the bank, look at it and see there be money in there, right? And beyond that, when we have this kind of clear communication with our contacts and our leads, we live as a thriving entrepreneur. With that said, let's jump in to our first commercial break. Hi, my name is Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of multiple books, and I help people write, publish, and market their books to bestseller. In fact, there are literally thousands of people that have used the system that I created to be able to write, publish, and market their books, and now they're best-selling authors. And you're next. I just wanted to come on for a minute, say hi to you, tell you a little bit about me, introduce myself, and tell you I know the world is waiting on your message, and I would be so honored to be part of sharing your message with the world. Go to AskSteveKidd.com and schedule a time to talk today. This is Steve. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur today as we talk about clear communications. In the first segment, we talked about getting leads, making sales, doing the kind of things that should be integral to the lifeblood of our company, as well as is the starting point to our presence out in the world. And yet often, our communication in that area is the least clear of everything and anything. And so I really encourage you to really take a look at the top of your funnel, the beginning of your sales cycle, the way that you present yourself out into the world, and ask yourself, are these communications clear? Do I really know, and can people hear it and know exactly what I am and what I do? I hope that you really will do that. Now we're going to jump into our next guest, and we're going to talk even more about some different ways that you can have clear communications in your life and, most importantly, in your business. Let's jump in. Join me in welcoming Matthew Creighton. Hey, Matthew, how you doing today?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here with us. First off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Sure, absolutely. So I am the founder and principal of a public affairs PR and consulting firm. We're based out of New Jersey, but have offices everywhere. And the name of the firm is Publitic. So that's what I've been dedicating a lot of my time to is to a growing team and growing business.
And so you were responsible for adding on the team members, or what specific tasks do you do at the company?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So I started back in 2011 as a solo practitioner, still trying to kind of very much find my way in the world, and did that for roughly 3 years, and then met up with my current partner, who's still with us today. And ever since then, we've been adding team members. So my day-to-day responsibilities are pretty wide-ranging still, a lot of management, sort of directing traffic a little bit, and then also a lot on the client services side and actually doing some of the work too. So, it's jumping in where I need to on video editing or writing a press release or writing a speech or jumping on a strategy call or whatever. So it's never a dull moment for me.
Absolutely. So, what is your company's forte? I mean, not that any of us can do only what we absolutely love doing all day, but if you could, what would be the thing you love doing the most?
Sure. So I love to work on really challenging strategic or communications problems. So the more challenging or more complex, the more interesting it is to me. So we work in a wide variety of industries, and on a lot of projects that have pretty wide-ranging implications for one thing or the other. But I'm personally very interested in things that present a particular challenge. I think so. Trying to help a business figure out how to get to that next level, how to manage a crisis, helping public figures or entrepreneurs even manage their own personal brands or position themselves within the marketplace, or deal with weighing in on issues that are particularly hot button. So those are the sorts of things that are super interesting from a high level perspective.
I love that. So, what's the one thing that when somebody comes to you, you wish they knew before coming to work with you?
Sure, that's I wish I wish a lot of folks would do this. A lot of clients. So it's better to be prepared prior to finding yourself in a crisis in particular. Like specifically when we're talking about managing crisis, a lot of times, we end up in a situation where, there was no prior planning or very little prior planning for how to deal with a crisis or something that happens that you have to communicate through, that fundamentally threatens your brand equity, customer loyalty, audience loyalty in some cases. So I would say the one thing is, take a couple of steps initially to try to prevent crisis, or at least prepare for when one hits. That way, you're ready to roll when the rubber meets the road and that stuff. So I would say, I'd much rather get a call earlier on than when it's much later down the road. I don't want to say too late, but it certainly becomes more challenging.
Absolutely, I totally get that. All too often, I think we do find that people don't even think about getting a fire extinguisher until their own hair is on fire.
That's right. That's a great analogy. Yes, I would love to have a fire extinguisher in every every office, as it were. But unfortunately, you're right. Like people don't think about that. I mean, why would you, right? Like no, people don't like to think about stuff that potentially could go wrong. Unless a little bit of an anxious person, I'm sure. And in that case, like people do think about all sorts of things that go wrong. But by and large, I think we generally like to be a little bit more optimistic. So you don't want to entertain any sort of peril.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, being prepared rather than in peril. Um, what are some of the foundational things to really assessing where you are and being prepared for what's coming? In other words, plan for the worst and then hope for the best kind of a situation. How can we know what could go wrong if it's never gone wrong? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure, absolutely. So I don't think you can prepare for every scenario. I mean, that's certainly not practical. I don't think that you can look at every variable out there and say, okay, we're gonna have a specific response for this, and this. What you can do though, as a brand or public figure, is lead with your values and really understand, having a firm understanding of what those are, having a firm understanding of what your who is in your audience prior to when crisis strikes, I think is a good first step. And then also going through the mental steps of understanding what you're going to do as a leader in whatever space you're in a time of crisis, because I think there is an element of panic that sets in that can lead us down some pretty unproductive paths. Sometimes where you have a knee jerk reaction to something, or you wait too long. You end up in sort of decision paralysis, and you wait too long to respond to something, or you respond too quickly and and the facts of the issue end up changing down the road, and you look kind of silly, if you've responded in a way that doesn't exactly address what is going on. So I think part of it is mental preparedness, understanding that there are steps to go through, and then kind of going back again to what are the values, what are the things that you want to communicate on a good day, and then understand what that looks like on a bad day as well.
I love that so much. So, what are the things that just drive you crazy? I know it's not fair to make you ask that to talk about that on the radio, but what are the things that we'll take it this way? When people come to you and you help them, they then turn around and say, "I wish I would have known this sooner." So, what are some of those kind of things that the people in retrospect after you help them out wish they would have known sooner?
Yeah, so there are a million things that drive me crazy. I think, and everyone in this space. So I don't, and those two things are a little. So that's a little bit different than even looking at what people wish they knew sooner. So I could start with what drives me crazy is the one thing where I see a lot of people go wrong, executives, brands, public figures, is that they are some subset can be hard to coach or not open to advice or coaching. And that is extraordinarily detrimental, right? Because none of us have the right answer 100% of the time. It's about developing processes that get you to the right answer. It's not always about being right. It's about getting to the right answer. That's sort of what we say around here. So a thing that drives me absolutely nuts is a lack of willingness to learn, to be introspective. Because if you don't figure out how to manage your failures and take something away from that, then you're never going to progress past that point. It's very hard to move on beyond that if you're not taking a critical look and saying, well, what could I have done differently in this perspective, in this situation? Should I have had a different perspective? Should I have reacted differently? So I think those are some of the things that drive me absolutely crazy. And I'm sure like a lot of practitioners, particularly in the communication strategy, consulting, crisis management space too, would say that it's tough too when a client brings you in looking for validation of a pre-existing viewpoint. So that's a tough one too, where they're not necessarily, so they say they're looking for counsel, but really they're looking for validation, and those are two very different things as well.
That's really good. So, what are some basics? I mean, really, a person needs to work with you, especially when you're starting talking about some of the things that you're an expert at. But what are some of the basic kind of things that person can do when they find that a crisis is beginning to start that could help mitigate that and help them get in front of it versus, being at that, at the mercy of that critical situation that's come up?
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of crisis I find is sort of about a violation of expectations. So your audience, customer base, client base, they have certain expectations of you as a leader, your brand, your organization. So when those things are violated in some way because of a mistake that was made or some comment that was made off the cuff that wasn't particularly productive, that's really where you trigger crisis. They're also so I mean I should to be fair say that there are really two types of crises. So there are problems and communications problems, right? So like the problems are things where you actually have very real organizational issues that have not been addressed, or someone did something that was actually bad, like objectively bad. I'm not saying unethical necessarily, or I mean that does happen, but we try not to dabble in that space. But things operationally mistakes are made that create a problem in a workplace. For example, workplace culture, right? That's a big thing where I don't think you can actually communicate away a workplace culture issue unless you address workplace culture. And then there are communications problems, specifically things that stem from sort of a misframing or misunderstanding of something someone said, or a viewpoint that they took on a particular issue. So and then there's sort of combination issues. So we try to separate those two things and figure out exactly what we're dealing with in that case. And then in terms of so that's what I would say is like is sort of the thing that we first take a look at. And then the first step I think would be also, again, like violation of expectations. So understanding what your audience expects from you to begin with is an extraordinarily helpful thing to have at the top of your mind at any given time. Even if you're doing something, even if it's not a crisis situation, you're trying to market or position yourself in the marketplace a little bit better, capture market share. It really is helpful to understand what your audience is thinking and what they already expect of you. And I think there is sometimes a little bit of a blind spot on that front. So those are the things that we look at first when we have a situation like this. It's like, okay, so what expectation was violated, and then how can you prevent that and try to inoculate against those sorts of things. And I think one big piece of that is actually trying to listen a little bit better to what your particular audience is expects of you and has come to has come to expect of you as a brand or a leader. So I think that's an extraordinarily important first step to trying to prevent things is to look at what those expectations are, and what people think of you as a brand or a leader or public facing figure.
Oh, I love that. So for people that want to work with you, first off, give us an idea of what kind of companies you prefer working with.
Sure. So we work with a number of different companies in different industries. So everything from startups to companies in the clean energy space, real estate, tech, more broadly, individual entrepreneurs in some cases, in the AI space. So we're pretty spread out. We work again in all sorts of different industries and different situations. We work a lot on what I call sort of like political adjacent issues too. So, for example, like if we're working in real estate, land use to some extent, like what you can build and what sort of projects you can build in certain places. There's an inherently sort of political process to that as well. So, we work on a lot of those sort of political adjacent issues, or ESG, or thinking about how to communicate values as a brand. So it's we're actually pretty agnostic on exactly what types of companies we work with for the most part. But I mean, again, the sort of compass that we have, though, is we tend to work with companies that align with our values as well. So generally speaking, like companies that are looking to do some good in the world.
I really love that. And give us where we go to connect to you. What's your URL? Best places to connect with you.
Sure. So we're pretty active on LinkedIn, and are becoming more active on Instagram in particular. So you can check us out at Publitics PR on Instagram, and then Publitics on LinkedIn. You can look us up there, and then Publitics.com as well for our main website. So we try to post some content insights from the team from time to time. So we have some pretty cool stuff up there, and some new stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks as well.
And again, tell us how to spell Publitics.
Sure. That is Publilics.
Perfect. Well, Matthew, before I let you go, give us some words of encouragement that let us know that crises may happen, but that they don't have to be, the end of things.
Absolutely. They can even be an opportunity to reflect, because a crisis may be a product of actually being stuck in, again, your journey, trying to develop a stronger brand, or again, break into a new market, or grow in some way. So in some ways, these things can be an opportunity to reassess and become stronger, and come out more resilient on the other end of it as an organization, or as a public figure. So I think in some ways these things can be opportunities to really examine blind spots. It sort of forces a process of self evaluation, which I think is very important.
Matthew, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Thank you.
What happens when our communications aren't clear? Well, that's when we get into difficulties. That's when we need somebody like Matthew to come in and help us, create a strategy to be able to more clearly communicate who we are, what we mean, what we meant, and get us out of some of those discussions that we have. Public relations to begin with is all about how we present ourselves out into the public. But then there is that whole element of when you haven't presented yourself the way that you intended to, or even you messed up, because it happens for all of us, how do you then communicate clearly to be able to turn what was definitely a negative into something that can be positive and help you and your company live as a thriving entrepreneur? With that said, let's jump into our next commercial break. Hi, my name is Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of multiple books, and I help people write, publish, and market their books to bestseller. In fact, there are literally thousands of people that have used the system that I created to be able to write, publish, and market their books, and now they're best-selling authors. And you're next. I just wanted to come on for a minute, say hi to you, tell you a little bit about me, introduce myself, and tell you I know the world is waiting on your message, and I would be so honored to be part of sharing your message with the world. Go to AskSteveKidd.com and schedule a time to talk today. This is Steve. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur today as we talk about clear communications. Being clear in what we're saying and what we're doing is so impactful. It's so effective and so necessary. Some of you that have listened to this show for a long time, you've heard the times when I've said something that's completely not the thing I meant. I remember there was a time there when I was using the word prejudice meaning the word bias. And those are two really, really differently meaning words, and it's important to get both of those correct. And it's a lot of those kind of things in clear communications that makes all the difference to the person that we're talking about, whether it be like we were talking in the first segment, the prospective new clients, or it be existing clients or existing relationships out in the marketplace that we've said or done something that needs to be addressed and strategically help be corrected. And then there's especially one of the times we need clear communication. We've got another one, and this one's fun because I don't think a lot of times we think about this particular element of it. But what are our numbers communicating about our company? I want you to think about that. I want you to listen real closely here as we jump in to our next guest. Join me in welcoming Angie Moody. Hey, Angie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm so good, thanks. So first off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in this world.
Yes. So I am a lot of things. I'm a founder. I have a company called Ruby Money that offers bookkeeping and tax prep for solo entrepreneurs. I am a product designer. I've spent 20 years designing products for consumer tech and financial services companies, some of which you may have heard of, the likes of Facebook and Capital One and Visa. I'm a mother. I have 2 daughters that I am raising to be financial feminists. And I am an amateur tennis player and avid paddleboarder. And so I love that in this life, you don't have to just be one thing. You get to kind of build a portfolio career. And it's been really exciting to kind of explore different parts of that.
So you worked in corporate, and then you just woke up one morning and decided, to heck with all this cool corporate stuff, I'm going to start my own business and work even more hours? Or how did that transition happen?
Great question. Yeah, I spent 15, 20 years working up the ranks at big, large corporate companies and, learned a ton, gained some incredibly valuable experiences. But I don't know if it happened in one day, but over the course of probably 6 or 8 months, I started to evaluate kind of, what I wanted out of the next chapter of my life. And I recognized that I wasn't able to be as present for my family as I wanted to be. And I felt that I was losing connection with the work. I wasn't as passionate about my work. I didn't feel that I was as creative as I used to be. And I really realized that I missed being in a really small company, in a really small organization where I could see the direct impact of my work. And just kind of craved having a little bit more professional freedom. So, when I left my last corporate job at Instagram, I honestly didn't know what I was going to do next. I took about 8 months to figure that out. I did some startup consulting where I worked with some founders that I knew in Silicon Valley that needed help on a part-time basis, and really enjoyed the flexibility of that work, enjoyed being able to make such a big impact in such a short period of time. And that kind of brought me back to life, getting to do those short-term projects. And then one thing led to another, and I stumbled upon a pain point, which I thought was an amazing business opportunity. And I had always wanted to start my own business. In fact, in most of the roles that I had at big companies, I was an internal entrepreneur. And I really wanted the opportunity to kind of build a business from scratch and have the kind of autonomy that went with that. So 2 years ago, I decided to kind of throw my hat in the ring and start Ruby Money.
I love that. So you came up with something that was a real hole in the industry, and you solved the problem. I love that. That's awesome. So give us an idea. What is the thing that everybody wishes they had, but until you came around, they just didn't have a way of getting it done?
Oh my gosh. An accountant that's always on, that's looking out for you and automating the tedious tasks that are required to stay compliant and stay on top of your finances as a solo business owner. So this hole is actually something I felt because I became a consultant, and all of a sudden there was no HR or accounting department. No one was paying my taxes for me. No one signed me up for a health insurance plan. Nobody was keeping track of expenses. I didn't have a shiny expense card to charge my laptop to. And at the end of the year, I realized that while it was great, I got paid, I didn't have any books. I didn't have anything to show for it. And when it came time to filing taxes, I had to go on this hunt of like downloading, bank statements and credit card statements and trying to remember what I spent and what I paid for and which client paid me and what account they paid me and on what date and how much. And it was just such a headache. And I realized that there had to be a better way. And the existing solutions were really built for larger, more established businesses, ones that have the budget to hire bookkeepers. The QuickBooks, the FreshBooks, these large accounting platforms, they kind of have too much functionality and are very overwhelming and hard to use. And so I saw the opportunity to build an incredibly simple, beautiful, and low-cost tool that replicated all of the things you wish you had a bookkeeper or an accountant doing for you when you're a solo business owner.
I really love that. That is so cool. So it almost sounds like, and hopefully you didn't do this, but it almost sounds like at the end of your first year, you realized that you kind of didn't have a business account either. And things were, money came in here, it came in over there, it went out here, it went out over there. Did I hear that correctly, or was I putting words in your mouth?
No, I mean, everything was going into my personal account. The income I made was going into my personal account. My expenses were coming out of my personal account. And so there was no separation between, my personal life and my consulting life. And I don't think I even knew to call myself a business at that time. We find a lot of people when they start up on their own, they maybe take a contract role or a consulting role or a freelance role, or they start driving an Uber, or they start, getting gigs off of Upwork. They still don't really think about themselves as a business, but that's what you are. And so when you have this commingling of your personal finances and your business finances, it can make it really challenging to figure out, like, how is your business doing? And it can make it very frustrating to file taxes. And we really wanted to streamline that because we noticed that people were overpaying their taxes, paying massive penalties to the IRS, simply because they just didn't have good records. They couldn't see the write-offs that were available for them. They weren't properly tracking their income and their expenses, and that led to a ton of headaches at tax time and a very expensive tax bill.
And thanks so much for letting me put you on the spot, because we've all done it. We all are in that commingled space, and for me, it was the first time I wanted to try to get a loan for the business. And they're like, we can't take your personal account. I'm like, why not? That's where all the money went.
Exactly.
All right. So, do you have a really cool way that you've worked it out so that the things that are family stuff, your husband puts his check in the bank, those kind of things, that it can be separated out easily without it becoming a whole new headache for the new entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, our strategy is to meet you where you are. So our app is really all about simplicity and automation. And so when you create a Ruby Money account, you link it to whatever bank account your business finances are flowing in and out of. If that's a personal account, okay, we'll meet you there. And the app will help you sort through what's business and what's personal. So you create a view into just your business finances. If you do have a dedicated business account already, great. We'll connect to that and suck everything in. And I think it's really important that you meet people where they are, because this journey of entrepreneurship is very long and windy. And some people keep full-time jobs while they're starting their own side businesses, and they intend to do that for a long time. And other people, they make the break and they go all in. But it's important, I think, in this day and age, when you are seeing so many people take a hybrid approach to where they earn their income, that you understand that that's just life, right? Life is messy. And so we kind of meet you where you are, help you separate out what's business, what's personal, so that you get a really clear view on your business finances. And to your point, you can generate a statement. You can generate, a profit and loss statement. You can generate a tax form that allows you to file your taxes, all without having to have dedicated business accounting software that costs you, hundreds of dollars a month.
Angie, this is so huge. I mean, I know you know it, but for the people listening that don't understand, this is amazing. I mean, it's really cool. Every single one of us that have ever started a business have had exactly the problem you're describing. And I don't know that any of us have had a good solution until you. So first off, thank you very much. Let's talk about the starting place. What is the stuff that you wish people knew already that all too often they don't until you come to them?
Yeah, I think we mentioned one, which is, like, you are a business. The minute you start making your own income, the minute you get that first deposit into your Venmo account or from Stripe or from a client or someone who just writes you a check, you're a business. And I think that can be very intimidating, but it's really important to kind of own that, because that then gives you the ability to make decisions like a business owner. So that's the first one. It's just like that kind of mindset that you are a business. The second one is understanding how taxes will impact your business. And so again, when you work for a company, your taxes are kind of taken out of your paycheck and you don't really have much insight into it. When you work for yourself, you have to pay taxes yourself. You're responsible for calculating how much you owe the IRS and then submitting those payments according to the schedule that they provide. They give you a quarterly schedule. And for a lot of people, they just sort of avoid this. It's uncomfortable. They don't know how much to pay. They don't know where to pay. The whole process is very intimidating. And so they just ignore it. And then in April, they get a surprise tax bill, which they probably haven't been saving up for. And they find out that they were probably undercharging for their business because they didn't factor in how much taxes were going to be. So that's kind of the biggest mistake. And that's one of the things that the app does, is it automates this process of identifying how much you're going to owe in taxes on any of your self-employed income, helping you set that money aside as you make it. So you're not, trying to guess, and then sending those payments automatically to you for the IRS. You can do all of that manually. You can hire a CPA and pay them thousands of dollars to do that for you. Both of those are not great experiences. And so this is really the last thing you need to be thinking about as a solo entrepreneur. You really just need a system that's doing that automatically. And so, that's why we built Ruby Money. But I'd see that is one of the biggest mistakes, is just avoiding the tax topic and ending up with a really big surprise tax bill. The third one is, frankly, not taking write-offs. Write-offs are your friend. And when you work for yourself, there's so many more write-offs you can take than when you work for a company. And they're not that hard to do. They're not that hard to take, but it can be an intimidating topic, and people are afraid. They're afraid they're going to go to jail. The reality is the IRS really wants to encourage small business owners to take advantage of these write-offs so that they grow their business. I mean, small businesses are the backbone of the US, and the IRS has incredibly tax-friendly policies for business owners that allow you to write off quite a lot of your expenses. And I think people are afraid to take them, and that's a big mistake.
I had a question that came up while you were saying that. You're talking about in the tax section, helping people understand what where they were losing money. Does the system have the capability to be able to actually help people also with the pricing? And I asked that specifically because I remember I was working with one of my coaches, and she went through the cost of everything. And literally what she said to me was, since you like losing money anyway, from now on, whenever you sell one, why don't you just write me a check for a couple $100s too? Because obviously you like losing money. Does the system help a person identify that as well?
Yeah. So what's really cool is that when you're self-employed, your income fluctuates. So it's more important to think about things in percentages than absolute dollars. And so when you're setting up the app, it will tell you what percentage of your income is going to go to taxes based on, your personal financial situation and where you live and all of these things. And so for some people, it can be, 21, 22%. For some people, if you live in like a high tax state like California or New York, and your husband or spouse has a W-2 job, that can be 40, 45%. So if you're charging $100 an hour and your tax rate is 20%, then you're going to keep 80 of that 100, right? If you are, apologies, you just heard my calendar beep. If you are charging $100 an hour and your tax rate is 45%, well, then you're only keeping $55. And so it kind of backs you into what your profit margin is. Apologies. What your profit margin is for your business, which helps you understand, am I charging enough? Is my rate high enough? And I think that's a really powerful tool. I mean, we don't measure what we don't look at, and so that understanding what that rate is gives you the ability to then ask yourself those hard questions of, am I underpricing myself?
I love this discussion. I wish we could go for about 3 hours, but I do want to give people the ability to go deeper with you. How can a person get in contact with you and begin to start using Ruby Money?
Yes, please go to our website, rubymoney.us. There are free tools on that website, calculators, guides, articles. You can download a list of deductions. You can figure out what your tax rate is. There's all kinds of free tools. And then we have a mobile app, and you can download it straight from the website, or you can find it in the App Store if you just search for Ruby Money. And the app will automate all of your bookkeeping, allow you to connect to your bank account, and give you everything that you need to file your taxes and really to forget about your taxes. So that's the best way to find us. I post on LinkedIn. You can follow me, Angie Moody. I'm always posting great tax content on LinkedIn. And we're also on Instagram, rubymoney.us there as well.
I love it. Angie, thanks so much for a really cool situation that you have set up. And thanks for being a guest here on the show today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
The whole time as I was listening to this, because I pre-record all of the interviews, the whole time I was listening to this, I was thinking of the old phrase, money talks. Well, the question that I've always had when I hear that phrase is, okay, I agree completely, money talks. What is your money saying? What is it communicating to the people around you? A lot of times, again, I quoted Errol earlier, but he used to, for fun, go out and take pictures next to Lamborghinis and, the really expensive cars. And then in the caption, he would explain, this is, for those of you that don't know, what most of your up-level, your upper-level, multi-level marketing company people, gurus, as he used the phrase, this is what they're really doing when they show a picture of them with their yacht, with their really cool car, whatever kind of thing. He goes, most of them don't make enough money to be able to really truly have it, but they need to present, they're communicating to you a level of success to get you to be able to buy in. And, and I know there's some of them who made wild amounts of money, Errol being one of them, the one time he was in a network marketing company. But as a true billionaire, Errol liked sometimes to call out some of the lack of transparency, if you will, if not some of the falsities that sometimes come in the way that people communicate who they are, what they're doing, and what you should think about them. I think it's really important for us to be clear, and I think a lot of times the most important place for that is in our money, that it says who we truly are at our heart and core as people versus that what do we feel like we need to present to the world kind of a lie that isn't really true. If you're wealthy, it's okay to flaunt it. I remember another different conversation I was having with Errol, and he said, you get to the place where when you're really truly wealthy, you've bought all the clothes, you've driven all the cars, you've gone to all the places. He goes, and it becomes about what can you do with your life? What are the things that you're meant to do, and how can you effectively and impactfully live this life that you have to live? And that always stuck with me. And Errol could have bought literally anything he wanted to, and yet it was about the impact that he could make on each individual person's life that he came to. That was what he wanted to clearly communicate. It is what he clearly communicated in his book, You Can Too, by Errol Abramson. Since I've been talking about him a lot, I should at least plug his book. But I need you to understand, you are uniquely brilliant. You were created for a purpose, and the world needs you. You need to clearly communicate who you are. You need to clearly understand who you are so that you can clearly communicate who you are. And then you need to share that with the world. It's one of the reasons why books are so foundational. And I don't typically, other than the commercials, talk a lot about it. But it is why it's so important to have a book to clearly communicate who you are and what you're doing in this world. Even if that's what it is right now and that changes, well, then we'll just do another book. So I really hope that this helps you a little bit in some different ways to clearly communicate who you are and to know how you can live as a thriving entrepreneur. Until we're together again next time, have a great week.
Thanks for listening to Thriving Entrepreneur today. If you want to get your question answered, send an email to questions@wehelpyouthrive.com. We look forward to you joining us again next time.
Hi, my name is Steve Kidd. I am a third-generation minister, an international best-selling author of multiple books, and I help people write, publish, and market their books to bestseller. In fact, there are literally thousands of people that have used the system that I created to be able to write, publish, and market their books, and now they're best-selling authors. And you're next. I just wanted to come on for a minute, say hi to you, tell you a little bit about me, introduce myself, and tell you I know the world is waiting on your message, and I would be so honored to be part of sharing your message with the world. Go to AskSteveKid.com and schedule a time to talk today.